بسم الله سيدي تفضل.
Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the second of the two revelations. Its source is the Quran and it is the explanation of its meaning.
No. So this is very, very important principle. That the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is the second of the two revelations. So it's not a secondary revelation, it's a second of the two revelations. And this is a failure that people commit when they see that the Sunnah, since it's coming from the Prophet ﷺ, is just a human thing. And their attack of the Sunnah is an attack, they think it's an attack of just something separate from the Quran. But the Sunnah, the whole body of the Sunnah, takes its authority from the Quran. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Therefore, the Sunnah in its totality, as a body, as a material, it is as authoritative as the Quran itself. It stems from the Quran and it explains the meanings of the Quran. If someone neglects it, then our understanding of the Quran will not just be defective and will not just be incomplete, but it will be disastrous. Right? We can never understand the Quran unless the Sunnah is there. So when someone says, isn't the Quran sufficient to us? Well, that's a false claim, because the Quran needs the Sunnah to be clear. Right? The Quran needs the Sunnah to be clear. If someone takes the Sunnah out of the process of dealing with the Quran, that means that he has not dealt with the Quran. Right? The Quran cannot stand alone. Right?
The prophetic Sunnah is the principal explanation of the Quran. Its unique quality is that it is inherent, so that it is not only the first but also the most accurate exegesis of the meanings of the Quran. It is infallible and definitive. It complements the Quranic guidance so that both together provide the final legal verdict for any matter. Imam Suyuti says in Al-Quran, Imam al-Shafi said, everything that the community has said is an exegesis of the Sunnah. And
He means by the community here the ulama, not just the كل جميع ما تقوله الأمة. Well, any individual who's not qualified scholar, what he says has no value. Right? He means جميع ما تقوله الأمة أي أهل العلم. The word ummah comes in various meanings in the Quran. 5 meanings almost. One is a great man. When the Quran says ummah, it could mean a great man. Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. And one of its meanings is a nation, a community. Kuntum khayra ummah ukhrijat linnas. And ummah also means a small group of people. Any small group of people who have something in common between them, they are called what? Ummah. وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ. So ummah doesn't only mean a community or a nation, it means even a small group of people. When Musa came to the water of Madian, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ, a group of people. And one of the meanings of ummah is long period of time. Long period of time. وَقَالَ الَّذِي نَجَى مِنْهُمَا وَادَّكَرَ بَعْدَ أُمَّةٍ. Like the one who left prison with Yusuf alayhi salam, and he remembered after a long period of time. And ummah also means any group of animals. إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. So ummah could mean a nation, or a big community, could mean a great man, could mean a small group of people, could mean a group of animals or a species, and it could mean period of time. So which of these 5 meanings here is a group of people, the ulama. جميع ما تقوله الأمة, i.e. whichever the ulama of the ummah say, شرح للسنة, is explanation to the sunnah. وجميع السنة, the total of the sunnah, is شرح للقرآن, is an explanation, exegesis of the Quran. Why? Because it's the practical manifestation of the meanings of the Quran.
He also said, every judgment given by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam originates in what he understood of the Quran. Now I say this is confirmed by his statement, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I make licit for you only that which God has made licit in his book, and I make illicit only that which God has made illicit in his book. This was transmitted to us by Shafi and
نعم.
Sheikh Tahrir al-Jazari said in Tawjih al-Nazar, to direct his attention, a scholar of Usul once said, when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, is all in the Quran, either explicitly or in principle, whether the connection is easy or difficult to grasp. He who is capable of understanding will understand, whereas he who not will not. The same judgment he passed or verdict he gave. The student's grasp of this matter will be in proportion to the effort he expends and to his capabilities and understanding. Sa'id ibn Jubair said, no hadith was ever transmitted to me in a correct manner from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but that I found confirmation for it in the book of God.
So this is also important, because some people today will refuse the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam under the guise of its violation of the rationality, or it doesn't agree with the mind. Didn't the Quran command us to use our intellects? Didn't the Quran say, أَفَلَا يَنظُرُونَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? Shouldn't you reflect? Shouldn't you reasons? Shouldn't you think? Shouldn't you ponder? So they will say, look, how can we believe these ahadith of the Sunnah that conflict with the mind? If they conflict with the mind, therefore they conflict with the Quran. No. The answer to that would be that you are claiming an apparent conflict of the mind. The Quran and the Sunnah do not conflict with if they conflict with your mind is not the mind. Your mind is what? Is not the mind. It's the collective mind of the ulama of the ummah. It's the collective mind of what? Of the ulama of the ummah. Otherwise, we will end up with a sharia that is very subjective. Remember, a alim, when a scholar passes a judgment, part of his passing of a judgment has to be, before he comes to his conclusion, has to be observing the ijma' of the ulama of the ummah. Why? The ijma' is the unanimous understanding of the uqul, of the different minds. So basically, my mind, your mind, his mind, her mind, these are individual understandings and individual attempts of understanding the Sunnah and the Quran. And in addition to the limitation, the inherent limitation in the human mind, there is another barrier, which is that this is an individual mind. So in order to overcome this barrier and to remain only with the deficiency of human mind, we have to have what? Collective ijtihad, collective minds. So qualified minds coming together. So Sayyidina Sa'id ibn Jubair, the student of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, he says, I have not received a hadith, no hadith has ever been transmitted to me in a correct manner from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's also important. Sometimes the hadith that has been communicated to us is communicated in the wrong way. So you need to verify where the hadith is coming from. Possibly it's from the Rawi. The problem is with the Rawi himself. That's where ilm al-hadith is very helpful. So possibly the hadith doesn't make sense because a word has been replaced with another word. The hadith doesn't make sense because there is idraj in the hadith. There is insertion in the hadith, and the insertion is not from the words of the Prophet ﷺ, but with time it has been understood to be part of the hadith. Possibly the hadith has been mixed with another hadith. Two hadiths coming together, right? Like people quoting, possibly the narrator is quoting the end of the hadith that needs the beginning to be understood. Like استفتي قلبك وإن أفتاك المفتون أو استفتي قلبك وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك, which people quote all the time. Consult your heart even if people give you fatwa. There is no hadith that says that. The hadith says جئت تسأل عن البر استفتي قلبك. You have come to ask me about what is good, consult your heart. البر حسن الخلق. Goodness is good character. والإثم ما حاك في النفس وتردد في الصدر. Evil is that which moves back and forth in your heart. وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك. Even if people give you fatwa. So you're taking the end of this sentence and the tail of that sentence and putting them together with me. استفتي قلبك وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك. That's wrong. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say that. He didn't say consult your heart even if people give you fatwa. And someone says, well, my heart is feeling rest with it. I don't think this is haram. Why should it be haram? Right? And then the ulama said, well, it's haram. No, but rationally it doesn't. Since when was haram and wajib and halal? Since when we had to pass that through our minds? Do you believe? If you are not a Muslim, that's a different issue. But do you believe in Allah? That's why Aqidah comes before what? Fiqh. Do you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your Rabb? The Prophet, do you believe in the sidq of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam? If you believe in the sidq of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then you will not leave him and trust your mind. Right? It's like a conflict of two authorities here. وإذا سمعوا ما أنزل إلى الرسول إنما كان قول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا. This is the response expected from a believer. But if you're not a believer, fine, just tell us. And then we can deal with the situation in that sense. So he says, ما بلغني. So the hadith never says, consult your heart even if people give you fatwa. No. The hadith says, evil is evil even if people try to justify it for you. What you feel about as bad, you will know. You will know that this is bad. Even if people try to kind of give you a leeway, الإثم ما حاك في النفس وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك. Even if people give you, even if people try to justify it for you. What's haram is obvious. What's bad is obvious. But basically, the hadith is dissuading us from finding excuses. It's telling you even if someone submits some excuses to you, you shouldn't listen to them. والإثم ما حاك في النفس وتردد في الصدر وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك. Go on. That's in the books of usul. That's the ulama who are considered to be ulama. They agree on a specific hukum, on a specific understanding, and this is kind of widely accepted by the ulama of a generation. It's like a very simple understanding what ijma' is. There are 7 conditions for the ijma' that are mentioned in the books of usul. No. Like for example, hijab, the issue of hijab. There is ijma' on the obligation of hijab. So if someone today comes and he says, well, I don't believe in hijab, they're violating the ijma'. There is no ijma' on the shape of the hijab, on the color of the hijab, on whether it should be like this or like that. No, but there is ijma' on what should be covered and what shouldn't be covered. There is ijma' on that. Anywhere else, there is ijma' al hurmat al-zina, isn't it? The prohibition of zina. There is ijma' on that. There is ijma' on the basics of marriage, that what constitutes marriage. Even across the madhahib. Like if you look across the madhahib, there is ijma' on the what is the minimum. You can come with what? With the minimum of what's considered what? A marriage. Right? Remember, so if someone, for example, as we said before, if someone says, oh, but Abu Hanifa says the agreement of the wali is not required, and Malik says the presence of the shuhud at the time of the marriage is not required, but consummation has to happen after shahadat shuhud. There has to be witnesses, but the presence of the shuhud of the witnesses at the time of the contract is not necessary. And Imam Shafi'i says this: if we drop this and if we drop it, no. There is ijma' on the validity of the marriage with these conditions, right? That these are the conditions. So if you would like a marriage to be valid, it has to be valid in accordance to one of these. It's the meaning. The meaning is the marriage has to happen in accordance to one of the 4 schools. You can't just drop this and this and this and this, because what will happen if you drop from the Maliki school, for example, the witnesses, and if you drop the wali from the Hanafi school, and if you drop something else from the Shafi'i school, then what will happen? You will end up with zina. There will be ijma' that this is zina. Right? There will be ijma' that this is what? Zina. Because these fuqaha, if we ask Ahmad and Malik and Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i together to review this action, there will be ijma' that this action does not fit within any of the Islamic schools. So there will be effectively an ijma' that this is what? Zina. But if one agrees that this is marriage, others, there will be an agreement that this is marriage within the parameters of Sharia, even if it is not marriage according to their own, this madhab. Salah, for example, if there is ijma', if you neglect the bare minimum of salah, there will be ijma' that this is not salah, right? That this is not salah. But if your salah fits within one of the madhahib and your wudu fits within one of the madhahib, then it will be ijma' that this is a valid salah in accordance to the greater realm of Shariat al-Islam. Naam, Sidi.
This declaration of Sa'id ibn Jubair demonstrates an unsurpassable degree of understanding of the meanings of both the Quran and the prophetic hadith. When he studies a hadith, he is able to rise until he reaches a particular fountainhead in the Quran from which springs the hadith understudy. A student will be able to grasp more or less of that according to his zeal and effort. Among latecomers, the great scholar Ibrahim Muhammad Abdullah al-Khawli concentrated on this for 35 years, meditated the prophetic hadith and how they spring from the Quran, to the extent that I have often heard him say there is no hadith but that I know from which particular verse of the book of God it springs. He authored on the Quran a very enjoyable book entitled Sunnah Bayan al-Quran. The Sunnah is the explanation of the Quran, which is in print. I had the privilege of reading that book, including chapter in his presence, after which he granted himself.
You see, 35 years reflecting on the hadith and how do they stem from the Quran. And someone who cannot read even Bukhari, or he doesn't know if you ask them about the different versions of the hadith, they will not be able to even restore it from their memory, retrieve it from their memory. They will come and jump up and down and say this is in conflict with the Quran. Right? But after 35 years, right, this is the nature of this ilm, that the longer you spend with it, the wider and the deeper we can trust your judgment of it. Right?
Suyuti says in Ibn Abi Fadl al-Mursi says in his tafsir, the Quran contains the sciences of the first among humans and the last, so that in reality its meaning is known only to him who received it and then to the Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Apart from that which God subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept exclusively to himself. Then the majority of the leading companions inherited this from him, such as the 4 caliphs, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, were able to say, were I to use the hobble of a camel, I would be able to find it through the book of God.
This is very interesting, because I just had this thought that this could be a reason why the earlier Sahaba did not write the tafsir of the Quran. Besides the traditional, the oft-quoted opinion that they just depended on the words of the Prophet ﷺ or the other traditions, writing down, okay, this is what the Prophet, what's been narrated from the Prophet ﷺ regarding this issue. But because of the massiveness and the size of the knowledge of the early Sahaba about the Quran, it was so big to be put in volumes. It was so huge to be put what? In volumes. With time passing, like when you have so much, you can't actually put it in writing. But when time passed and the ulama started specializing in areas, each one came to the Quran from their door. Not from the door of the Quran, from their door. They came to the Quran from one stream. And when that happened, they were able to put what they have taken from the Quran in volumes. Because now the load is smaller. But because the load was bigger, and that view fits or suits the issue of the decline of knowledge. Because knowledge is not in increase, it's in decrease. That's reality. Right? It's in what? It's in decrease. It's not in increase. Yes, we have a time when the ulum were massive, but there was a specialization in these ulum, and the understanding was also difficult because they were distant from the sources. At the time of the Sahaba and the Tabi'in radwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, remember that the madhahib that we work on to this day happened in those days. They did not happen at the prime of what we call Islamic civilization. They happened in the early centuries of Islam. Imam Ahmad radiallahu ta'ala an died 241. Shafi'i 204. Malik 179. Abu Hanifa 150. So these ulum, these madhahib, these usul al-madhahib were established and were put together in those early days of Islam. Because of the load of knowledge, the Sahaba did not put tafasir. But when the load became much smaller, the ulama were able to put it in writing. Now,
Then those who followed with excellence inherited it in them, but then resolution faltered, knowledge receded, and scholars became too feeble to continue carrying what the companions and followers had carried of the sciences and various arts. So they separated them into distinct specialities, and each group took charge of a single speciality. I say, as is well known, this led to the Muslims gathering a brilliant array of techniques to serve the prophetic utterances. They invented the various sciences of hadith, one of the most important of which being the science of the reliability of transmitters. The result was a stupendous scientific achievement unparalleled in any previous community. Scholars who became known as Hafiz wrote numerous works about the Prophet's clarifications of the Quranic text, thereby producing what became known as al-Tafsir bil-Maktub, which means using the prophetic traditions to shed light on the Quran. One of the most voluminous works of this kind is Imam Suyuti's Ad-Durr al-Mansur fi Tafsir bil-Maktub, where he attempted to collect every single tradition that had to do with the Quran from a very wide range of sources. Among the late comments.
this is also very, very crucial to think about, that our civilization, Muslim civilization, Muslim tradition, is a revelation serving tradition. It's tradition that emerged from revelation, from text. Everything else was done in service of the context, of the text. The aql, the human intellect, was employed to serve the text. All of these ulum that we have invented, or that we have adopted, or the ones that we have adapted, those that we have developed, those that we have borrowed, they were all put together to serve what? The text. To serve the revelation. We had revelation. The first thing that the ulama did is verifying that this is the revelation through what we call documentation. Documenting, oral documentation, tajweed. So we documented the letters of the Quran. Qira'at, we documented the words of the Quran. Ilm al-Ad, the science of counting the ayat of the Quran, to document the ayat of the Quran. Ilm al-Rasm, to document the script of the Quran. Hadith, compiling a hadith to document the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Verifying and sifting the hadith to document and to kind of categorize the authority of what has been narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once we finish that job, serving the revelation, then we moved our attention to understanding the revelation. That's the stage in the human history where reason came to serve faith. Reason came to serve revelation. What has happened today, the shift in our paradigm, is that revelation started serving reason. So we started justifying what we think of as being good by quoting revelation or twisting it. And that's one of the meanings of tahrif. Harrafa means to divert. Diverting the words from their meanings and diverting the revelation from its position. In that empire of reason, John Walbridge, he talks about the role of reason in Islam, the role of Muslim intellect. The most brilliant minds in the Muslim community for centuries, were dedicated to the service of what? Of the text. Muslims had to study astronomy, architecture, archaeology. Why? Because they needed this to serve the Quran. What has happened for us today is sometimes when we deal with that tradition, we glorify what Muslim scholars have put together based on their own context in tafsir of the Quran. For example, Surah Al-Kahf, the Mufassirin used the information available at the time, scientific facts available at the time, to give their own understanding of that certain ayat. This understanding does not have to be the same understanding as we are today. Our critique of it, when we criticize it, we should not make that an excuse to criticize the ayat or to criticize the ulama, because they did their best, right? They did their best with what was available at their time, right? They did their best. Our job is to do our best as well, right? But we have to bear in mind that the Muslim civilization all emerged from and came from and depended on serving the revelation. That's the purpose. They did not study knowledge for the sake of empowering man, as others have done. For them, knowledge is not power. Knowledge is light. The more knowledge we'll have, the better we'll be able to understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we'll be able to expound its meanings to people. So this was always in the Muslim mind, right? When they were doing that, they served the revelation. They made revelation and reason. That was the right order. When we reverse this order, then what happens is we end up becoming a group of justifiers. We justify every new thing, and there is no limits for reasoning. But there is limit. Revelation is the wahy, is the dabit. This is the kind of the regulation. This is the framework. Habib Abu Bakr al-Mashhur says that in order for the human mind to learn adab, it has to be under revelation. Why? Because without revelation, the human mind claims supremacy. But when it's working under revelation, it has that higher authority of the transcendent. Right? Now,
Among the late Muhaddis Abdul Basit al-Humar authored a book where he undertook the exegesis of the Quran by means of hadith, but was only able to finish as far as Surah Hud. The exegete must be acquainted with all the hadiths and the traditions related to each verse. When the chain of transmission reaching up to the Prophet ﷺ is uninterrupted, whether effectively or virtually, the text must be accepted as valid. If no such text exists, he must pause and reflect, for each exegete explains the verses according to the state of knowledge of his time. But the Quran is much vaster than the sum of all knowledge possessed by any particular community at any particular time, transcending space, time and place and particular conditions. We shall elaborate on that in the coming chapter. Another benefit that accrues to the exegete from being acquainted with all that has been transmitted to date in relation to a particular subject is the ability to avoid relying exclusively on his own intellectual capacities and make the most of what his predecessors have said, reviewing their thoughts on the subject in order that they may inspire him with thoughts and opinions which he would perhaps not have reached on his own.
That's very, very important as well. When you build on what has been written before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might open for you an idea that a previous scholar, they call this in Arabic تلاقح الأفكار. تلاقح in Arabic, تلقح, لقح in Arabic means to fertilize. When you fertilize date trees to have the best fruit, fertilization. So this artificial fertilization, when you read what other scholars have written, it's as if their ideas fertilize your mind, as if your mind is a soil, and their ideas come to fertilize your mind so that the fruit of your mind will be better. And what has happened, they contributed to you. Anyone whom you have read throughout your life has contributed to making part of your mind. Anyone whom you have benefited from, استفدت منه مسألة, and you have benefited one مسألة from, it's a big thing. I can't remember. Can't remember who of the fuqaha was asked about a mas'ala related to dogs, and he went to this man who kind of he breeds dogs, and he asked him, and he asked him a very technical question, and he gave him the answer, and based on that answer he built his fiqh opinion, and he said, he's my ustad, he's my teacher, استفدت منه كذا وكذا. SubhanAllah. So you never know, right? So when it comes to tafsir, you read what the ulama have said before, it might guide you, it might inspire you, something where you were, if you were to look to the ayah alone, possibly you would have never been able to open that ambiguous part. But this alim has opened the door for you, and he said, okay, come in, here is the door, right? كل من سار على الدرب وصل. You know, Christopher Columbus, when he went to the America, what was he planning to do first of all? He was trying to get to Indonesia and the Far East without having to cross in the normal way. So he thought it might be shorter to get through the other side. And he used some maps written by a man called Ibn Majid, who was a Muslim sailor. And when he went to South America, so he went to South America, right? Christopher Columbus ended up in South America, right? And he used some sailors who used to work in Muslim Spain, because Columbus went to America in 1492, the same year in which Granada was recaptured. So right in the Reconquista. There is even some historians even say that Christopher Columbus had his idea of reaching Indonesia and the Far East way before that, a few years before that. And no one was interested. He went to different monarchs, because in those days, a monarch or a king or a royalty had to fund these expeditions. It's a lot of money. So he went to different monarchs, and no one was willing to sponsor his idea. It was like a crazy idea. No one was interested to fund him. Until he went to Ferdinand and Isabella, the Queen of Aragon, who recaptured Granada. And in the beginning, they refused. And then when they reconquested Granada and captured it in 1492, they sent to him. And they said, come, what was that idea? SubhanAllah, masail, ajib. Something very beautiful.
I read. Was that, I think it's Abu Bakr al-Mazini. Abu Bakr al-Mazini was a great linguist. They said one of the people of the book wanted to study Kitab Sibawayh with him in grammar. And he refused to teach him the book because the book has, he said, the book has about 30,000 or more ayat of the Quran. I can't teach that to you. So he said, even though the man offered me a lot of money, I refused. They said all of a sudden, one of his slaves, girl, who used to work with him, he taught her grammar. Abu Bakr al-Mazini taught her grammar. And he sold her and she ended up in the palace of the Khalifa. And the Khalifa normally has poets and scholars around him. So one of the poets was reciting this line, أَظَلُومُ إِنَّ مُصَابَكُمْ رَجُلًا أَهْدَى السَّلَامَ إِلَيْكُمُ ظُلْمُ. So she was singing that, the girl was singing that. And one of the scholars, one of the grammarians corrected her. He said, no, إِنَّ مُصَابَكُمْ رَجُلٌ أَظَلُومُ إِنَّ مُصَابَكُمْ رَجُلٌ. And she insisted, no, it is rajulan. And the Khalifa said, how can you fight with this grammarian? She said, I used to work at Abu Bakr al-Mazini's house, and this is how he taught me this qasida. This is how he taught me this poem. So they sent to Abu Bakr al-Mazini, the Khalifa brought him, and he said to him, Masmuka. He was hidden. He was a grammarian, great grammarian, but he was hidden. He said, first of all, من أي القبائل أنت? Which tribe are you from? He said, من Mazin. And he said, which part? He mentioned his tribe. And that part of tribe, they pronounced the ba as mim. So he said, Masmuka, what's your name? His name is what? Bakr, Abu Bakr. If he pronounced it with mim, it will be what? Makr, cunning. So he said, فَأَجَبْتُهُ بِالْبَاء. So he basically changed his dialect. And the Khalifa smiled because he knew that he said, فَكَرِهْتُ أَنْ أُخَاطِبَهُ بِالْمَكْرِ. Anyway, he said to him, you taught this girl such and such. And he said, yes. He said, how come? So he justified it to him. He said, مُصَابَكُمْ is masdar. أي إِنَّ إِصَابَتَكُمْ رَجُلًا. And this is مفعول به and this and that. He explained it. So the Khalifa gave him 30,000 dirhams for this fa'idah, for that little fa'idah. So he said, I refused to teach the book of Sibawayh to this another book, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced this, gave me this. So another story similar to that, how people can benefit from just one mas'ala, and appreciate these masail. That one of the khulafa, I think it was Harun al-Rashid, he was reading the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أيما رجل تزوج امرأة ذات مال إلا كانت له عونا من سداد أو من سداد. So the common narration is min sidad or min sadad, I think. So the scholar who was with the Khalifa, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's not like that. It is with kasra. And he said, why? And he explained it to him. So the Khalifa made a mistake, right? So he said to him, would you keep that to yourself? Basically, wouldn't you scandalize me? And then he gave him 50. He said, I'll give you jaiza. He gave him 50,000 dirhams. And he wrote a message to his amil, to his minister, to give him the money. So he went and the minister said, why is the Khalifa giving you all of this money? He said, for something between me and him. He said, what is it? So he said, he related the story to him. He said, I give you another 30,000 for this fa'idah. So whoever gives you some benefits, whoever gives you some benefits of their knowledge, it opens your mind. You build on that. You wouldn't have been able to see it where if you were not to look at the books of the people of the past. Shall we stop here? صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.